I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist, or sexist, or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. I can't believe it's leaking. I just cleaned the damn thing, and now it's leaking. I can hear it dripping. Oh, God damn it. All right, fine. Yeah, take a seat, you little idiot. I was just sitting here complaining about how I cleaned my dishwasher and now it's leaking. Apparently, my dishwasher was only held together by an intricate layer of calcification from the water. The same calcification that was getting all over my dishes, which made me think, I should clean this thing. So I cleaned it. And now, after cleaning it, it's dripping all over the place. Never fix anything. Never try to improve your life. And if something doesn't work anymore, I guess you're just supposed to throw it away and just get a new one. Don't try to fix or clean it. Welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion and not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. This week, we're going to continue to read Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë. Want to learn about the author? Sure, I took the time to steal from Wikipedia, you might as well. The author, Emily Brontë, was born July 30th, 1818, and died December 19th, 1848. Is an English novelist and poet who's best known for her only novel, Wuthering Heights, now considered a classic of English literature. And she also published a book of poetry with her sisters, Charlotte and Anne, titled Poems by Currer, Ellis, and Acton Bell, which is weirdly specific, made-up names. I'm sure it's little weird pet names they gave each other, with their own poems finding regard as poetic genius. She died of tuberculosis, most likely caused by runoff water from a nearby graveyard. You want to hear some fun facts I stole from the historypress.co.uk? Sure. Emily Brontë once cauterized her own wound, like an action star would do in the middle of battle. Emily loved dogs, especially large dogs, and her huge Mastiff Keeper was said to be so fierce that only she could control it. On occasion, as revealed by Brontë biographer Elizabeth Gaskell, she was bitten by a rabid dog frothing at the mouth. Not wanting to worry the others, Emily took a red-hot poker from the fire and seared her own flesh to the bone, Jesus Christ, to cauterize the wound. What does that look like? The incident was repeated in Charlotte Bronte's novel Shirley, in which the character of Shirley is based upon Emily. My God, cauterized her own wound. No wonder this person died young. What the hell was she doing to her body besides drinking corpse water from the graveyard? Emily Brontë was domestic goddess. The Brontë sisters had an elderly housemaid named Tabby Ackroyd, that they all loved, and who is the inspiration for Nelly Dean in Wuthering Heights. After an icy slip led to Tabby breaking her leg badly, it was Emily who volunteered to take on domestic duties. Haworth stationer John Greenwood reported that her bread was the best the villagers had tasted. What, did Tabby have to make bread for the whole town? I think she probably faked her injury. Oh, that's the grandfather clock telling me to shut up, and it's time to go on and read this book. So why don't you head down to the library, get snuggled up, and I'll see you there. Well, there you go. Why don't you get yourself all snuggled up here in my Naga hide chair? Yes, there's water on the floor. I don't want to talk about it. Chapter 12. While Miss Linton moped about the park and the garden, always silent and almost always in tears, and her brother shut himself up among books that he never opened, wearying, I guessed, with a continual vague expectation that Catherine, repenting her conduct, would come of her own accord to ask pardon and seek reconciliation. And she fasted. Pernacious. Oh, that's right. She locked herself in her room. It's been a week since I last read. And under the idea, probably, that at every meal Edgar was ready to choke for her absence, and pride alone held him from running to cast himself at her feet. Oh, I went about my household duties, convinced that the Grange had but one sensible soul in its walls, and that lodged in my body. I wasted no condolences on Miss, nor any exaltations on Mistress, nor did I pay much attention to the sighs of my master, who yearned to hear his lady's name. Since he might not hear her voice, I determined that they should come about as they pleased for me, and though it was tiresomely slow process, I began to rejoice at length in a faint dawn of its progress, as I thought at first. Oh, Miss Linton, on the third day, unbarred her door. Yeah, she has got to leave sometime. She's probably been pooping in little cups, because you probably filled up your bedpan, and having finished the water in her pitcher and decanter, desired a renewed supply, and a basin of gruel, for she believed she was dying. That I set down as a speech meant for Edgar's ears. I believed no such thing, so I kept it to myself and brought her some tea and some dry toast, and she ate, drank eagerly, and sank back on her pillow again, clenching her hands and groaning. Oh, I will die, she exclaimed, since no one cares anything about me. I wish I had not taken that. Then, a good while after, I heard her murmur, No, I will not die. He'd be glad. He does not love me at all. He would never miss me. Do you want anything, ma'am? I inquired, still persevering my external composure, in spite of her ghastly countenance and strange, exaggerated manner. What is that apathetic being doing? She demanded, pushing the thick and tangled locks from her wasted face. Has he fallen into lethargy, or is he dead? Neither, replied I. If you mean Mr. Linton, he's tolerably well, I think, though his studies occupy him rather more than they ought. He's continually among his books, since he has no other society. I should not have spoken so if I had known her true condition, but I could not get rid of the notion that she acted a part of her disorder. Among his books, she cried, confounded, and I am dying. I, on the brink of my grave. My God, does he know that I am altered? Continued she, staring at a reflection in the mirror hanging on the opposite wall. Burp, is that Catherine Linton? He imagines me in a play, perhaps. Cannot you inform him that it is frightful earnest? Nelly, if it be not too late, as soon as I learn how he feels, I choose between these two. Either to starve at once, that he would be no punishment unless he had a heart, or to recover and to leave the country. Are you speaking the truth about him now? Take care. Is he actually so utterly indifferent for my life? Ma'am, I answered, the master has no idea of your being deranged, and of course he does not fear that you will let yourself die of hunger. You think not? Perhaps you tell him I will, she returned. Persuade him. Speak of your own mind. Say you're certain I will. No, you forget, Miss Linton, I suggested, that you have eaten some food with a relish this evening, and tomorrow you will perceive its good effects. Oh, if I were only sure it would kill him, she interrupted, I'd kill myself directly. Oh, these 3 awful nights I've never closed my lids, and I've been tormented. I've been haunted, Nelly, and I begin to fancy you don't like me. How strange, I thought, though everybody hated and despised each other, and they could not avoid loving me, and they've all turned enemies in a few hours. They have, I'm positive. The people here. Oh, how dreary to meet death, surrounded by their cold faces. Isabella, terrified and repelled, afraid to enter the room. It would be so dreadful to watch Catherine go, and Edgar. Oh, Edgar, standing solemnly by to see it over, then offering prayers of thanks to God for restoring peace to this house and going back to his books. What in the name of all feels does he have to do with books when I'm dying? She could not hear the notion which I had put into her head of Mr. Linton's philosophical resignation. Tossing about, she increased her feverish bewilderment into madness and tore the pillow with her teeth. Yeah, and then raising herself up all burning, desired that I would open the window. Oh, we were in the middle of winter, and the wind blew strong from the northeast, and I objected. Both the expressions flitting over her face and the changes of her moods began to alarm me terribly, and brought to my recollection her former illness. Oh, and the doctor's injunction that she should not be crossed. Well, minutes previously, she was violent. Now, supported on one arm and not noticing my refusal to obey her, she seemed to find childish diversion in pulling the feathers from the rents that she had just made and arranging them on the sheet according to their different species. And her mind had strayed to other associations. That's a turkey's, she murmured to herself. And this one's a wild duck. This one's a pigeon. Oh, they put pigeon's feathers in pillows. No wonder I couldn't die. Oh, let me take care to throw it on the floor when I lie down. All right, here's a moorcock. Yeah. And this, I should know it among 1,000. It's a lapwings. A bonny bird wheeling over our heads in the middle of the moor. I wanted to get it into its nest, for the clouds had touched the swells and the rain felt coming. The feather was picked up from the heath and the bird was not shot. And we saw its nest in the winter, full of little skeletons. Heathcliff set a trap over it. The old ones dared not come. I made him promise that he'd never shoot a lapwing after that, and he did it. Yes, there are more. Did he shoot my lapwings, Nelly? Are they red, any of them? Let me look. Give over with that baby work, I interrupted, dragging the pillow away and turned the hole towards the mattress, for she was removing its contents by handfuls. Lie down, shut your eyes. You're wandering. There's a mess. The down is flying about like snow. I went here and there collecting it. I see in you, Nelly, she continued dreamily, an aged woman. You have gray hair and bent shoulders. This bed is the fairy cave under Pearstone Crags, and you are gathering elf bolts to hurt our heifers, pretending, while I am near, that they are the only locks of wool. That's what you'll come to 50 years hence. I know you are not so now, and I'm not wandering. You're mistaken, or else I should believe you really were that withered hag, and I should think that I was under Pearstone Crags, and I am conscious it's night. And there are 2 candles on the table, making the black press shine like jet. The black press? Where's that? I asked. You're talking in your sleep. That's against the wall, like it always is, she replied. It does appear odd. I see a face in it. There's no press in the room. What the hell's a press? It never was, said I, resuming my seat and looping up the curtain that I might watch her. Don't you see that face? She inquired, gazing earnestly at the mirror. And say what I could, I was incapable of making her comprehend it to her own. So I rose and covered it with a shawl. It's behind there still, she pursued anxiously, and it's stirred. Who is it? I hope he'll not come out when you're gone. Nelly. The room is haunted, and I'm afraid of being alone. I took her hand in mine and bid her to be composed, for a succession of shudders convulsed her frame, and she would keep straining her gaze towards glass. So the press is just a mirror. There's nobody here, I insisted. It was yourself, Miss Linton. You knew it a while since. Myself, she gasped, and the clock is striking 12. It's true, then. That's dreadful. Her fingers clutched the clothes and gathered them over her eyes. I attempted to steal the door with the intention of calling her husband, but I was summoned back by a piercing shriek. The shawl had dropped from her frame. Why, what is the matter? Cried I. Who is coward now? Wake up. That is glass, the mirror, Miss Linton, and you see yourself in it, and there I am too by your side. Trembling and bewildered, she held me fast, but the horror gradually passed from her countenance. Its paleness gave place to a glow of shame. Oh, dear, I thought I was home, she sighed. I thought I was lying in my chamber at Wuthering Heights because I'm weak, and my brain got confused, and I screamed unconsciously. Don't say anything, but stay with me. I dread sleeping. My dreams appall me. Sound sleep would do you good, ma'am, I answered, and I hope this suffering will prevent you from trying starving again. But if I were in my own bed in this old house, she went on bitterly, wringing her hands, and that wind sounding in the firs and the ladders. Do let me feel it. It comes straight down the moor. Do let me have one breath. To pass fire, I held the ceasement ajar a few seconds, and a cold blast rushed through. I closed it and returned to my post. She lay still now, her face bathed in tears, exhaustion of body, and entirely subdued her spirit. Our fiery Catherine was no better than a wailing child. How long is it since I shut myself in here? She asked, suddenly reviving. There's Monday evening, I replied, and it is Thursday night, or rather Friday morning at present. What? Of the same week? She exclaimed. Only that brief time? Long enough to live on. Nothing but cold water and ill temper, observed I. Well, it seems a weary number of hours, she muttered doubtfully. It must be more. I remember being in the parlor after they had quarreled, and Edgar being cruelly provoking, and me running into this room, desperate. As soon as I ever had barred the door, utter blackness overwhelmed me, and I fell on the floor. I couldn't explain to Edgar how certain I felt of having a fit, or going raging mad, and if he persisted in teasing me, I had no command of tongue or brain. He had not guessed of my agony, I could say it, perhaps. It barely left me a sense of trying to escape from him and his voice. Before I recovered sufficiently to see and hear, it began to be dawn. And Nelly, I'll tell you what I thought. Oh, and what has kept reoccurring till I feared for my reason. I thought as I lay there with my head against that table leg and my eyes dimly discerning the gray square of the window, that I was enclosed in the oak-paneled bed at home, and my heart ached with some great grief which, just wakened, I could not recollect. I pondered and worried myself to discover what it could be, and, most strangely, the whole last 7 years of my life grew a blank, and I did not recall that they had been at all. I was a child, and my father had just buried, and my misery arose from the separation that Hindley had ordered between me and Heathcliff, and I laid alone for the first time, and rousing from a dismal doze after a night of weeping, I lifted my hand to push the panels aside, and it struck the tabletop, and I swept it along the carpet, and then memory burst in. My late anguish was swallowed by a paroxysm of despair, and I cannot say why I felt so wildly wretched. It must have been a temporary derangement, for there's scarcely cause, but supposing at 12 years old that I had wrenched from the heights and very early association, and with all in all, as Heathcliff was at the time, had been converted at a stroke into Miss Linton. I am getting lost on what the hell's happening right now. The lady at Thrushcross Grange, oh good, I can still say it, and the wife of a stranger, an exile, an outcast, henceforth, from what had been my world. You may fancy a glimpse of the abyss where I groveled. Oh, shake your head as you will, Nelly. You have helped to unsettle me. You should have spoken to Edgar. Indeed, you should, and compelled him to leave me quiet. Oh, I'm burning. Oh, I wish I were out of doors. I wish I were a girl again. Half savage, half hearty, and free, and laughing at injuries, not maddening them. Why am I so changed? Why does my blood rush into hell of tumult at a few words? Oh, I'm sure I should be myself were I once among the heather on those hills. Open the window. Wide again. Fasten it open. Quick, why don't you move? Because I won't give you your death of cold, I answered. You won't give me a chance at life, you mean, she said sullenly. However, I am not helpless yet. I'll open it myself. And sliding from the bed before I could hinder her, she crossed the room. Walking very uncertainly, threw it back and bent out, careless of the frosty air that cut her shoulders as keen as a knife. I entreated and finally attempted to force her to retire, but I soon found her delirious strength much surpassed mine. She was delirious, and I became convinced by her subsequent actions and ravings. Oh, there's no moon, and everything beneath lay in misty darkness. Not a light gleamed from any house, far or near. All had been extinguished long ago, and those at Wuthering Heights were never visible. Still, she asserted as she caught their shining. Look, she cried eagerly. That's my room with the candle in it. Oh, and the trees swaying before it, and the other candle is in Joseph's garret. Oh, Joseph sips out late, doesn't he? He's waiting till I come home that he may lock the gate. Well, he'll wait a while yet. It's a rough journey. I had a sad heart to travel, and we must pass by Gimmerton Kirk to go that journey. We braved its ghosts often together, and dared each other to stand among the graves and ask them to come. But Heathcliff, if I dare you now, will you venture? If you do, I'll keep you. I'll not lie there by myself. They may bury me 12 feet deep and throw the church down over me, but I won't rest till you are with me. I never will. She paused and resumed with a strange smile. He's considering. He'd rather I'd come with him. Find a way, then. Not through the kirkyard. Oh, you are slow. Be content. You always followed me. Perceiving in vain to argue against her insanity, I was planning how I could reach something to wrap about her without quitting my hold of herself, for I could not trust her alone with the gaping lattice, when, to my consternation, I heard the rattle of a door handle. And Mr. Linton entered. He had only then come from the library, and in passing through the lobby had noticed our talking and had been attracted by curiosity, or fear, to examine what it signified at this late hour. Sir, I cried, checking the exclamation risen to his lips at the sight which met him. In the bleak atmosphere of the chamber. My poor mistress is ill, and she quite masters me. I cannot manage her at all. Pray, come and persuade her to go to bed. Forget your anger, for she's hard to guide any way but her own. Catherine's ill, he said, hastening to us. Shut the window. Ellen, Catherine, why? He was silent. The haggardness of Miss Linton's appearance smote him speechless. And he could only glance from her in a horrified astonishment. She's been fretting here, I continued, and eating scarcely anything, and never complaining. She would admit none of us till this evening, and so we couldn't inform you of her state, as we were not aware of it ourselves, but it's nothing. I felt I uttered my explanations awkwardly, and the master frowned. It's nothing, is it, Ellen Dean? He said sternly. You shall account more clearly for keeping me ignorant of this. And he took his wife in his arms and looked at her with anguish. At first, she gave him no glance of recognition. He was invisible to her abstracted gaze. The delirium was not fixed, however, having weaned her eyes from contemplating the outer darkness. By degrees, she centered her attention on him and discovered who it was that held her. You've come, are you, Edgar Linton? She said with angry animation. You're one of those things that are ever found when least wanted, and when you are wanted, never. I suppose we shall have plenty of lamentations now. I see we shall, but they can't keep me from my narrow home out yonder. My resting place, where I'm bound before spring is over. There it is, not among Lintons, mind, under the chapel roof, but in the open air, with a headstone, and you may please yourself whether you want to go to them or come to me. Catherine, what have you done? Commenced the master. I am nothing to you any more. Do you love that wretch Heath? Hush, cried Miss Linton. Hush this moment. You mentioned that name, and I end the matter instantly by a spring from the window. What? She's just like, I'm going to jump out the window. What you touch at present, you may have, but my soul will be on that hilltop before you lay hands on me again. I don't want you, Edgar. I'm past wanting you. Return to your books. Now, I'm glad you possess a consolation, for all you had in me is gone. Well, her mind wanders, sir, I interposed. She has gone talking nonsense this whole evening, but let her have quiet and proper attendance, and she'll rally. Hereafter, we must be cautious how we vex her. I desire no further advice from you, answered Mr. Linton. You knew our mistress's nature, and you encouraged me to harass her, and not give me one hint of how she's been these 3 days. It's heartless. Months of sickness could not cause such a change. And I began to defend myself, thinking it too bad to be blamed for another's wicked waywardness. And I knew Miss Linton's nature by a headstrong and domineering, cried I, but I didn't know that you wished to foster her fierce temper. I didn't know that, to humor her, I should wink at Mr. Heathcliff. I performed the duty of a faithful servant in telling you, and I got a faithful servant's wages. Well, it'll teach me to be careful next time. Next time, you may gather intelligence for yourself. The next time you bring a tale to me, you shall quit my service, Ellen Dean, he replied. Well, you'd rather hear nothing about it, I suppose, then, Mr. Linton, said I. Heathcliff has your permission to come a-courting to the miss, and drop in at every opportunity your absence offers, on purpose to poison the mistress against you? Confused as Catherine was, her wits were alert in applying to our conversation. Nelly has played traitor, she exclaimed passionately. Nelly is my hidden enemy. You witch! You do seek elf boots to hurt us. Let me go, and I'll make her rue. I'll make her howl a recantation. A maniac's fury kindled under her brows. She struggled desperately to disengage herself from Linton's arms, and I felt no inclination to tarry the event, and resolving to seek medical aid on my own responsibility, I quitted the chamber. In passing the garden to reach the road, at a place where a bridle hook is driven in the wall, I saw something white, moved irregularly, evidently by another agent in the wind. Notwithstanding my hurry, I stayed to examine it, lest ever I should have the conviction impressed upon my imagination that it was a creature of the other world. My surprise and perplexity were great upon discovering, by touch more than vision, Miss Isabella Springer, Fanny, suspended by a handkerchief, and nearly at its last gasp. I quickly released the animal and lifted it to the garden. What? To my surprise and perplexity, after discovering, by touch more than vision, Miss Isabella Springer, so I guess dog, Fanny, suspended by a handkerchief, from what? From a window? Nearly at its last gasp, I quickly released the animal and lifted it into the garden. I had seen it follow its mistress upstairs when she went to bed, and wondered how much it would have got there, and what mischievous person had treated so. While untying the knot around the hook, it seemed to me that I repeatedly caught the beat of horses' feet galloping at some distance. But there were such a number of things to occupy my reflections that I hardly gave the circumstance a thought. Though it's a strange sound at that place at 2 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Kenneth was fortunately just issuing from his house to see a patient in the village as I came up the street, and my account of Catherine Linton's malady induced him to accompany me back immediately. He was a plain, rough man, and he made no scruple to speak his doubts of her surviving the second attack, unless she were more submissive to his distractions than she had shown herself before. "Nelly Dean," said he, "I can't help fancying that there's an extra cause for this. What was there been to do at the Grange? We've odd reports up there. A stout, hearty lass like Catherine does not fall ill for a trifle, and that sort of people should not either. It's hard work bringing them through fevers and such things. How did it begin?" "The master will inform you," I answered. "Oh, but you're acquainted with the Earnshaws' violent dispositions, and Mrs. Linton's caps them all. I may say this, it commenced in a quarrel, and she was struck during a tempest of passion with a kind of fit. Yeah, that's her account, at least, for she flew off in the height of it and locked herself up. Afterwards, she refused to eat, and now she alternately raves and remains in a half-dream, knowing those about her, but having her mind filled with all sorts of strange ideas and illusions." "Mr. Linton will be sorry," observed Kenneth interrogatively. "Sorry? He'll break his heart should anything happen," I replied. "Don't alarm him any more than necessary." "Well, I told him to beware," said my companion, "and he must abide by the consequences of neglecting my warning. Hasn't he been intimate with Mr. Heathcliff lately?" "Oh, Heathcliff frequently visits the Grange," answered I, "though more on strength of the mistress having known him as a boy than because the master likes his company. At present he's discharged from the trouble of calling, owing to some presumptuous aspirations after Miss Linton, which he manifested. I hardly think he'll be taken in again." "And does Miss Linton turn a cold shoulder on him?" It was the doctor's next question. "Well, I'm not her confidence," returned I, reluctant to continue the subject. "No. Oh, she's a sly one," he remarked, shaking his head. "She keeps her own counsel, but she's a real little fool. I have it from good authority that last night, what a pretty night it was, she and Heathcliff were walking in the plantation at the back of your house, I don't know, about 2 hours, and he pressed her not to go in again, but just mount his horse and go away with him. My informant, his informant learned a lot, said that she could only put him off by pledging her word of honor to be prepared on their first meeting after that. When it was when it was to be, he didn't hear, but you urged Mr. Linton to look sharp. Well, this news filled me with fresh fears. I outstripped Kenneth and ran most of the way back. The little dog was yelping in the garden yet, and I spared a minute to open the gate for it, but instead of going to the house door, it coursed up and down, sniffing the grass. It would have escaped the road had I not seized it and conveyed it with me. On ascending to Isabella's room, my suspicions were confirmed. It was empty. Had I been a few hours sooner, Mrs. Linton's illness might have arrested her rash step. But what could be done now? There was a bare possibility of overtaking them if I pursued instantly. I could not pursue them, however, and I dared not rouse the family and fill the place with confusion, still less unfold the business to my master, absorbed as he was in his present calamity and having no heart to spare for a second grief. I saw nothing for it but to hold my tongue and to suffer matters to take their course. And Kenneth Being arrived, I went with a badly composed countenance to announce him. Catherine lay in a, troubled sleep, and her husband had succeeded in soothing the excess of frenzy. He now hung over her pillow, watching every shade and every change in her painfully expressive features. The doctor, on examining the case for himself, spoke hopefully to him of its having a favorable termination if we could only preserve around her perfect and constant tranquility. To me, he signified that threatening danger was not so much death as permanent alienation of intellect. I did not close my eyes that night, nor did Mr. Linton. Indeed, he never went to bed, and the servants were up all long before the usual hour, moving through the house with stealthy tread and examining whispers as they encountered each other in the vocations. Everyone was active, but Miss Isabella, and they began to remark how sound she slept. Oh, her brother, too, asked if he had risen, seemed impatient for her presence, and hurt that she showed so little anxiety for her sister-in-law. I trembled lest he should send me to call her, but I was spared the pain of being the first proclaimant of her flight. One of the maids, thoughtless girl, who had been on an early errand to Gimmerton, came panting upstairs, open-mouthed, and dashed to the chamber, crying, "Ah, dear! Ah, dear, dear! Oh, what mun we have next? Master, our young lady, hold your noise!" I cried hastily, enraged at her clamorous manner. "Speak lower, Mary, what's the matter?" said Mr. Linton. What ails your young lady?" "Oh, she's gone. Young Heathcliff's run off with her," gasped the girl. "Oh, no, it's going to be another one of these." "Oh, that's not true," exclaimed Linton, rising in agitation. "Oh, it cannot be. How has the idea entered your head? Ellen Dean, go seek her. It's incredible. It cannot be." As he spoke, he took the servant to the door, and then he repeated his demand of no reasons for such an assertion. "Why, I met her on the road. A lad that fetches milk here," she stammered, "and he asked whether we weren't in trouble at the Grange. And I thought, he meant for a mistress's sickness. So I answered, yes. He says there's somebody gone after him, I guess." And I stared. He saw I knew naught about it, and I told how a gentleman and a lady had stopped to have a horseshoe fastened at the blacksmith shop 2 miles out of Gimmerton, not very long after midnight, and how the blacksmith's lass got up to spy who they were. Oh, and she knew them both directly, and she noticed the man. Heathcliff it was, she felt certain. Nobody could mistake him. Oh, besides, put a sovereign in her father's hand for payment. Oh, the lady had a cloak about her face, but having desired a sup of water while she drank it, fell back, and saw her very plain. Heathcliff both held bridles that were rode on, and they set their faces from the village, and went as fast as the roads would let them. The lass said nothing to her father, but told it all over Gimmerton this morning. I ran and peeped, for form's sake, into Isabella's room, confirming when I returned the servant's statement that Mr. Linton resumed his seat by the bed on my re-entrance, and he raised his eyes and read the meaning of my blank aspect and dropped them without giving an order or uttering a word. And "Are we to try any measures for overtaking and bringing her back?" I inquired. How should we do?" "She went on of her own accord," answered the master. "She had a right to go if she pleased. Trouble me no more about her. Hereafter she is only my sister in name, not because I disown her, but because she has disowned me." And that was all that was said on the subject, and he did not make a single inquiry further or mention her in any way except directing me to send what property she had in her house to her fresh home, wherever it was, when I knew it. Well, that was a lot of fun. Well, why don't we take a little break? Just get, a fresh change of scenery and head on down to my basement where I can play my guitar for you and tell you about the latest upcoming Penguin Random House books. Oh, yeah, finally made it down. Well, good. Why don't you take a seat on that folding chair underneath that naked light bulb as I stand here with my guitar underneath this also naked light bulb as I read to you the latest book from Penguin Random House. If you can't take the heat, Tales of Food, Feminism and Fury by Geraldine de Ruyter. Want to learn about it? Sure, why don't we? We're here in the basement, and the dripping... I'm starting to wonder if the dripping has always been from my dishwasher, and I was just too ignorant to understand until now. God, I hope that thing doesn't get worse. From the James Beard award-winning blogger behind The Everywhereist comes hilarious, searing essays on how food and cooking stoke the flames of her feminism. With charm and good humor, Geraldine de Ruyter welcomes us into her personal history and thus reconnects us with ourselves, says Mickey Kendall, New York Times bestselling author of Hood Feminism. When celebrity chef Mario Batali... Oh, I think I've actually heard of that guy. I think I've heard of him. Is he like one of those TV chefs? I hate cooking. I think cooking's stupid. Making a whole career out of like, oh, I cook things. Like, do you cook things? Anyways, sent out an apology letter for sexual harassment allegations made against it. Really? He had the gall to include a recipe for real? He had a recipe for cinnamon rolls for real at this apology? Of all things, Geraldine de Ruyter decided to make the recipe, and she happened to make food journalism history along with it. Her subsequent essay, with its scathing commentary about the pervasiveness of misogyny in the food world, really? Why? That is shocked. I mean, I guess, but it's the food world. Okay, I would read millions of times, lauded by industry luminaries from Martha Stewart to New York Times restaurant critic Pete Wells. It would land de Ruyter in the middle of a media firestorm. She found herself on the receiving ends of dozens of threats. Yeah, that's the way it goes whenever a woman speaks up in the media, when all she wanted to do was make something to eat. And okay, fine, maybe take down the patriarchy. And if you can't take the heat, de Ruyter shares stories about her shockingly true, painfully funny, and sometimes just painful adventures in gastronomy. We'll learn how she finally got a grip on her debilitating anxiety by emerging meal planning for the apocalypse. In parentheses, oh, you're probably deeply worried that in times of desperation I would eat your pets. And yes, I absolutely would eat your pets. Or how she learned to embrace her hanger. In parentheses, because women can be a lot of things, but we can't be angry or president, apparently. And how she inadvertently caused another international incident with a negative restaurant review. She made it onto the homepage of the New York Times website. She even got more death threats. Whoever wrote this really is relying heavily on the whole parentheses thing. Deliciously insightful and bitingly clever, If You Can't Take the Heat is a fresh look at the food, feminism, from one of the culinary world's sharpest voices. This book actually is something that I might be interested in. This is the first time I've ever read a book review from Penguin Random House where I'm surprised that I'm interested. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like foodies. Those people who make a point of reading a lot of food-related stuff, watching a lot of food-related stuff. They know all about the food industry, and I just don't get you people. It's such a dumb thing. It's food. But, so I'm sure you all say, oh yeah, oh no, there's misogyny in the food industry. And it's weird to me. It's like saying the children's entertainment industry is rife with misogyny. It's like Mr. Rogers, as soon as he gets done, the cameras turn off. He's like, calls one of his aides jiggles or something. It just seems weird. Like, no, you don't. You're not in an industry that's like hyper masculine where you should be acting that way. You're just like some food industry where you got done like in like a tart or something. You're like, haha, and the cameras turn off and then you shout at a woman. Just weird. So actually, this is a book I might actually read at some point in the future. You can get it. It's coming out on hardcover for $28.99 on March 12th, 2024 at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's, Target, and maybe enlighten someone who's at Walmart. They're looking for like a cheap above ground pool. And also a jacket and like socks and then 50% off Jiffy peanut butter. And then they walk down the aisles and they see this book and think, weird, maybe I should learn more about misogyny in the cooking industry at Walmart. Well, with that, why don't we go back upstairs to the library and finish reading this book. Well, there you are. Why don't you get yourself settled? That was a lot of fun. In the basement, just you and me, naked, light bulbs, reading to you. Well, why don't we get into chapter 13? For 2 months, the fugitives remained absent. In those 2 months, Mrs. Linton encountered and conquered the worst shock of what was denominated a brain fever. That's a real medical thing. No mother could have nursed an only child more devotedly than Edgar tended to her. Day and night he was watching, and patiently enduring all the annoyances that irritable nerves and a shaken reason could inflict. And though Kenneth remarked that what he saved from the grave could only recompose his care by forming the source of constant future anxiety, in fact, that his health and strength were being sacrificed to preserve a mere ruin of humanity. Oh, he knew no limits in gratitude and joy when Catherine's life was declared out of danger. An hour after hour, he would sit beside her, tracing the gradual return to bodily health and flattening his too sanguine hopes with the illusion that her mind would settle back to its right balance also, and would soon be entirely her former self. The first time she left her chamber was at the commencement of the following March. Mr. Linton had put on her pillow in the morning a handful of golden crocuses. Oh, that's nice of him. Her eye, long stranger to any gleam of pleasure, caught them in waking and shone delighted as she gathered them eagerly together. Oh, these are the earliest flowers at the Heights, she exclaimed. Oh, they remind me of the soft thaw winds and warm sunshine and nearly melted snow. Edgar, is there not a south wind? And is it not the snow almost gone? The snow is quite gone down here, darling, replied her husband, and I only see 2 white spots on the whole range of moors. The sky is blue, the larks are singing, the becks and brooks are at a full all brim. Catherine, last spring at this time I was longing to have you under this roof. Now I wish you were a mile or 2 up those hills. Oh, the air blows so sweetly, and I feel that it would cure you. Well, I shall never be there but once more, said the invalid, and then you'll leave me, and I shall remain forever. Next spring you'll long again to have me under this roof, and you'll look back and think you were happy today. Linton lavished on her the kindest caresses, and tried to cheer her by the fondest words, but vaguely regarding the flowers, she let her tears collect on her lashes and stream down her cheeks, unheeding. Oh, we knew she was really better, and therefore decided that long confinement to a single place produced much of this despondency, and it might be partially removed by a change of scene. Oh, the master told me to light a fire in the many weeks deserted parlor, and to set an easy chair in the sunshine by the window. Oh, and then he brought her down, and she sat a long while enjoying a genial heat. Burp, and as we expected, revived by the objects around her, which, though familiar, were free from the dreary associations investing her heated sick chamber. By evening she seemed greatly exhausted, yet no arguments could persuade her to return to that apartment, and I had to arrange the parlor sofa for her bed, till another room could be prepared to obviate the fatigue of mounting and descending the stairs. Oh, we fitted up this, where you lie at present, on the same floor with the parlor. She was soon strong enough to move from one to the other, leaning on Edgar's arm. I thought myself, and she might recover. Oh, so waited on as she was, and there was a double cause to desire it, and her existence depended on that of another. We cherished the hope that in a little while Mr. Linton's heart would be gladdened, and his land secured from a stranger's gripe, by the birth of an heir. I should mention that Isabella sent to her brother, some 6 weeks from her departure, a short note announcing her marriage to Heathcliff. Oh, it appeared dry and cold, but at the bottom was dotted in with pencil an obscure apology and an entreaty for kind remembrance and reconciliation, if her proceeding had offended him, asserting that she could not help it then, and being done, she had no power to repeal it. Linton did not reply to this, I believe, and in a fortnight more I got a long letter, which I considered odd, coming from the pen of the bride, just out of her honeymoon. Now I'll read it, for I keep it yet. Any relic of the dead is precious. Well, there we go, you just kind of foreshadowed that. And if they were valued living, oh, dear Ellen, it begins. I came last night to Wuthering Heights and heard for the first time that Catherine has been and is yet very ill. Oh, I must not write to her, I suppose, and my brother is either too angry or too distressed to answer what I sent him, still I must write to somebody, and the only choice left to me is you. Inform Edgar that I give the world to see his face again, and then my heart return to Thrushcross Grange. Oh, I can still say it. God, I'm improving as this book goes on. And in 24 hours after I left it, and is there at this moment, full of warm feelings for him and Catherine. Oh, I can't follow it through. These words are underlined. They need not expect me. I didn't say these words are underlined. That's actually in the story. They need not expect me, and they may draw their conclusions as they please. Taking care, however, to lay down at the front door of my weak will or deficient affection. The remainder of the letter, is for yourself alone. I want to ask you 2 questions. The first is, how'd you contrive to preserve the common sympathies of human nature when you rescinded here? And I cannot recognize any sentiment which those share with me. The second question is that I have great interest in, is this. Is Mr. Heathcliff a man? If so, is he mad? And if not, is he the devil? I shan't tell my reasons for making this inquiry, but I beseech you to explain, if you can, what I have married. That is, when you call to see me, and you must call Ellen very soon, don't write but come, and bring something for Edgar. And now you shall hear that I have been received in my new home as I am led to imagine the heights will be. Oh, it's to amuse myself that I dwell on such subjects as the lack of external comforts, and they never occupy my thoughts except at the moment when I miss them. I should laugh and dance for joy if I found their abstinence was the total of my miseries, and the rest was unnatural dream. The sun set behind the Grange as we turned to the moors, and by that I judged to be 6 o'clock, as my companion halted for half an hour to inspect the park and the gardens, and probably the place itself, as well as he could. You know, I think I've been saying Grange incorrectly this entire time. Grain. A football player, born Harold Grange. What? Galloping ghost? That's not right. Wikipedia. Grange may refer to buildings. Grange house. Translation, a barn. Okay, I'm just going to think that I'm saying Grange, not Grange, or something weird like that. For some reason, it's just dawning on me now. Am I not saying this right? But I have no one to hold my hand and help me say it correctly. So if from now on, in this book, it's Grange. Right or wrong, I don't care. And as we turn to the moors, by that I judged it to be 6 o'clock, and my companion halted, half an hour, to inspect the park, and the gardens, and probably the place itself, as well as we could. So it was dark when we dismounted in the paved yard of the farmhouse, and your old fellow servant, Joseph, issued out to receive us by the light of a dip candle. He did it with the courtesy that resounded to his credit. His first act was to elevate his torch to a level with my face, squint malignantly, project his upper lip, and turn away. Then he took 2 horses and led them to the stables, reappearing for the purpose of locking the outer gate as if we lived in an ancient castle. Heathcliff stayed to speak with him, and I entered the kitchen, a dingy, untidy hole. I dare say you would not know it. Oh, it's so changed since it was in your charge. By the fire stood a ruffianly child, strong in limb and dirty in garb, with the look of Catherine in his eyes and about his mouth. This is Edgar's legal nephew, I reflected, mine in a manner that I must shake hands, and yes, I must kiss him. It is right to establish good understanding at the beginning. I approached, and attempting to take his chubby fist, said, "How do you do, my dear?" He replied in a jargon I did not comprehend. "Shall you and I be friends, Hareton?" was my next essay of conversation. An oath and a threat set to throttle her on me if I did not frame off rewarded my perseverance. "Hey, throttler lad," whispered the little wretch, rousing a half-bred bulldog from its lair in a corner. "Now wilt thou be ganging?" he asked authoritatively. Love for my life urged a compliance. Oh, I stepped over the threshold to wait till the others should enter. Mr. Heathcliff was nowhere visible, and Joseph, whom I followed the stables and requested to accompany him in, after staring and muttering to himself, screwed up his nose and replied, Mim. Did Ivor Christian body hear aught like it? Mincing and munching? How can I tell what ye say? I hate it when they do this, the phonetic kind of spelling of, like, common people talk. But this one isn't as bad as other ones. I can actually get through this one. I say, I wish you'd come with me into the house, I cried, thinking him deaf, yet highly disgusted at his rudeness. None o' me. I gettin' summit else to do. Oh, it's starting to get bad. He answered and continued his work, moving his lantern jaws meanwhile and surveying my dress and countenance. Oh, the former a great deal too fine, but the latter, oh, I'm sure, as sad as you could desire, with sovereign contempt. I walked round the yard and through a wicket to another door, at which I took the liberty of knocking in hopes that some more civil servant might show himself, and after a short suspense, it was opened by a tall, gaunt man, without neckerchief, and otherwise extremely slovenly. His features were lost in masses of shaggy hair that hung on his shoulders. Oh, and his eyes, in italics, that's me saying it, too, were like ghostly Catherine's with all their beauty annihilated. What's your business here? He demanded grimly. Who are you? My name was Isabella Linton, I replied. You've seen me before, sir. I am lately married to Mr. Heathcliff. And he has brought me here, I suppose by your permission. I come back then? Asked the hermit, glaring like a hungry wolf. Yes, we came just now, I said, but he left me by the kitchen door. And when I would have gone in, your little boy played sentinel over the place and frightened me off the help of the bulldog. The hellish villain kept his word, growled my future host, searching the darkness beyond me in expectation of discovering Heathcliff, and then he indulged in a soliloquy of the exhortations, and threats of what it would have done to the fiend who deceived him. I repented, having tried the second entrance, and was almost inclined to slip away before he finished cursing, but ere I could execute the intention, he ordered me in, and shut and refastened the door. There was a great fire. There was all the light in the huge apartment, whose floor had grown a uniform gray, and the once brilliant pewter dishes, which used to attract my gaze when I was a girl, partook of a similar obscurity. Created by tarnish and dust, I inquired whether I might call the maid and be conducted to a bedroom. Mr. Earnshaw vouchsafied no answer. He walked up and down with his hands in his pockets, apparently quite forgetting my presence, and his abstraction was evidently so deep and his whole aspect so misanthropical that I shrank from disturbing him again. You'll not be surprised, Ellen, at my feeling particularly cheerless, seated in a worse than solitude on an inhospitable hearth, and remembering that 4 miles distant lay my delightful home, containing the only people I loved on earth. And there might be as well an Atlantic to part us instead of these 4 miles. I could not overpass them. I questioned with myself, where must I turn for comfort? And mind you, don't tell Edgar or Catherine, above every sorrow beside, this rose preeminent. Despair at finding nobody who could or would be my ally against Heathcliff. I had sought shelter at Wuthering Heights almost gladly because I was secured by arrangement from living alone with him, but, he knew the people we were coming amongst, and he did not fear their intermeddling. I sat and thought a doleful time. The clock struck 8 and 9, and still my companion paced to and fro, and his head bent on his breast, and perfectly silent, unless a groan or a bitter ejaculation forced itself out of it at intervals, and I listened to detect a woman's voice in the house. And filled the interim with wild regrets and dismal anticipations, which at last spoke audibly in irrepressible sighing and weeping. I was not aware how openly I grieved till Earnshaw halted opposite in his measured walk and gave me a stare of newly awakened surprise. Taking advantage of his recovered attention, I exclaimed, I'm tired from my journey. I want to go to bed. Where's the maidservant? Direct me to her, as she won't come to me. We have none, he answered. You must wait on yourself. Where must I sleep, then? I sobbed, as I was beyond regarding self-respect, weighed down by fatigue and wretchedness. Joseph will show you Heathcliff's chamber, said he. Open that door. He's in there. Well, I was going to obey, but then suddenly he arrested me and added in the strangest tone, "Oh, be so good as to turn your lock and draw your bolt. Don't omit it." Well, I said, but why, Mr. Earnshaw? I did not relish the notion of deliberately fastening myself in with Heathcliff. Look here, he replied, pulling from his waistcoat a curiously constructed pistol. What? Having a double-edged spring knife? What? Attached to the barrel? Oh, like a bayonet. There's a great tempter to desperate men, is it not? I cannot resist going out. He's got a pistol with a bayonet on the end. That's like gotta be the weirdest thing. You shoot someone, you just stab him real quick. That's really strange. I cannot resist going up at this very night and trying his door. If once I find it open, he's done for. Oh, I do it invariably, even though this minute before I have been recalled 100 reasons why he should make me refrain. Oh, it's some devil, that urges me to thwart my own schemes in killing him. You fight against the devil for love as long as you may, and when the time comes, not all the angels in heaven shall save him. I surveyed the weapon inquisitively. A hideous notion struck me, how powerful I should be possessing an instrument. Oh, I took it from his hand. I touched the blade. He looked astonished, and my expression on my face assumed during a brief second. No, it is not horror. It was covetousness. And he snatched the pistol back jealously and shut the knife. Oh, and he returned to his concealment. Well, I don't care if you tell him, said he. Put him on his guard and watch for him. You know the terms we are on, I see. Oh, his danger does not shock you. What has Heathcliff done to you? I asked. What has he wronged you to warrant such appalling hatred? Wouldn't it be wiser to bid him quit the house? No, thundered Earnshaw. Burp. Should he offer to leave me, he's a dead man. Persuade him to attempt it, and you are a murderess. Am I to lose all without a chance of retrieval? Is Hareton to be a beggar? Oh, damnation, I will have it back, and I'll have his gold too, and then his blood. Oh, here comes my wife. Hello, wife.
I was trying to be quiet.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
But I saw your legs coming down the stairs. How was the Cheesecake Factory with your coworkers?
Oh, it was good.
Was it good?
Yeah, we all got our cheesecake to go because we're all ancient.
Aw.
Yeah.
Poor hun.
So you've got a cheesecake upstairs. Wait.
I got a cheesecake. Which kind is it?
I got you, it's Adam's Reese's something or other.
Nice.
It's caramel.
Yeah.
And Butterfinger.
Oh.
And Reese's.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm going to be sweating in bed tonight. Sweating,
Sugar
dude.
sweats, dude.
Sugar sweats, dude. Well, that's fun. I've got a delicious Cheesecake Factory confection just waiting for me once I finish this goddamn chapter. No, thundered Earnshaw. Should he offer to leave me, he's a dead man. Persuade him to attempt it, and you are murderess. Am I to lose all without a chance of retrieval? Oh, is Hareton to be a beggar? Oh, damnation, I will have it back, and I'll have his gold too. And then his blood. And hell shall have his soul, and it'll be 10 times blacker with that guess than ever was before. You've acquainted me, Ellen, with your old master's habits. Oh, he is clearly on the verge of madness. Oh, he is so last night at least, and I shudder to be near him and thought of his servant's ill-bred moroseness as contemptibly agreeable, and now recommended his moody walk as I raised the latch and escaped into the kitchen. Joseph was bending over the fire, peering into a large pan that swung above it, and a wooden bowl of oatmeal stood on the settle close by. The contents of the pan began to boil, and he turned to plunge his hand into the bowl. I conjectured that this preparation was probably for our supper, and being hungry, I resolved it should be eatable. So, crying out sharply, "I'll make the porridge!" I removed the vessel out of his reach and proceeded to take off my hat and riding habit. Mr. Earnshaw, I continued, directs me to wait on myself. I will, and I'm not going to act a lady among you, for I fear I should starve. Goid, G-O-O-I-D, Good Lord, he muttered, sitting down and stroking his ribbed stockings from the knee to the ankle. if there's to be fresh otherings just when I getting used to two maesters, I'm getting tired of this. If I mun have a mistress, don't know what any of that means, set o'er my head, it's like time to be flitting. I never did see to think to see it day that I mud have the owl place, but I doubt it's nigh at hand. This lamentation drew no notice from me. I went briskly to work, sighing to remember a period when it would have been all merry fun, but compelled speedily to drive off into remembrance. It racked me to recall past happiness, and the great apparel there was of conjuring up its apparition. Oh, the quicker the thimble ran round, the faster the handfuls of metal fell into the water. Joseph beheld my style of cookery with growing indignation. "There," he ejaculated, "Hareton, thou willn't sup thy porridge to neat? There'll be naught but lumps as big as my kneve. Thar again, I'd fling a bowl on all if I were ye. There, pale tooth gillip off un, then you'll have done wit. Bang bang, it's a mercy to Botham, it has a deeved out." I hate that. It was rather a rough mess, I own, when poured into the basins. 4 had been provided, and a gallon pitcher of new milk was brought from the dairy, which Hareton seized up and commenced drinking and spilling from expensive lip. I expostulated and desired that he should have his in a mug, affirming that I would not taste the liquid treated so dirtily. The old cynic chose to be vastly offended at this nicety, assuring me repeatedly the barn was every bit as good as I, and every bit as wholesome, and wondering how I could fashion to be so conceited. Meanwhile, the infant ruffian continued sucking and glowered up at me defyingly as he slavered onto the jug. "I shall have my supper in another room," I said. "Have you no place to call a parlor?" "Parlor," he echoed sneeringly. "Parlor? Nay, we've no parlors. If ya done it like we're company, there's maesters if ya done it like maester, there's us." "Then I shall go upstairs," I answered. "Show me a chamber." I put on my basin on a tray and went myself to fetch some more milk, and with great grumblings the fellow rose and preceded me in my ascent, and we mounted to the garrets, and he opened a door, now and then, to look into the apartments we passed. Here's Ram," he said at last, flinging back a cranky board on hinges. "It's wheel enough to ate a few porridge in. There's a pack o' corn, corner there, meaderly clane. If ye're feared o' monkeying your grand silk close, spread your hanker top on't." Frickin' hate this. The Ram was a kind of lumber pole, smelling strong of malt and grain. Various sacks of which articles were piled up around, leaving a wide, bare space in the middle. "Why, man," I exclaimed, facing him angrily, "this is not a place to sleep in. I wish to see my bedroom." "Bedroom," he repeated in a tone of mockery. "Ya, see till bedrooms thar ist yon mine." I pointed to a second garret, only differing from the first and being more naked about the walls, and had a large, low, curtainless bed with an indigo-colored quilt at one end. "What do I want with yours?" I retorted. "I suppose Mr. Heathcliff does not lodge at the top of the house, does he?" "Oh, it's Maester Heathcliff's you're wanting," he said, as if making a new discovery. "Couldn't ye ha said so on then I mud ha tell ye, but all this work. That's just one ye cannot see. He, alas, keeps it locked on't nobody iver mells on't but hisslin." I'm so tired of this. "You've a nice house, Joseph," I could not refrain from observing, "and pleasant inmates. And I think the concentrated essence of all the madness of the world took up its abode in my brain that day, and I linked my fate with theirs. However, that is not to the present purpose. There are other rooms. Oh, for heaven's sake, be quick, and let me settle somewhere." He made no reply with this agitation, and only plodded doggedly down the wooden steps and halting before an apartment which, from the halt and the superior quality of its furniture, I conjectured to be the best one. Oh, there's carpet, yeah, a good one. And the pattern was obliterated by dust. A fireplace hung with cut paper dropping to pieces. A handsome oak bedstead with ample crimson curtains, rather expensive material, and modern make. But they had evidently experienced rough usage. The valiances hung in festoons, wrenched from their rings, and the iron rod supporting them was bent in an arc on one side, causing the drapery to trail upon the floor. And the chairs were, also damaged, many of them, severely, and deep indentations formed in the panels of the walls. I was endeavoring to gather a resolution for entering and taking possession, when my fool of a guide announced, "Here is to Maesters." My supper by this time was cold, my appetite gone, and my patience exhausted. I insisted on being provided instantly with a place of refuge and means of repose. "War, the divil," began the religious elder. "The Lord bless us. The Lord forgie us. Where the hell wold ye gang? Ye marred, wearisome knout. I hate this. I was so vexed I flung my tray and its contents on the ground, and then seated myself at the stairs' head, hid my face in my hands, and cried, "Ech! Ech!" exclaimed Joseph. "Weel done, Miss Cathy. Weel done, Miss Cathy. Howsoever, to Maester Saul just," I'm gonna skip past all this, and so he went on scolding to den beneath, taking the candle with him, and I remained in the dark. The period of reflection succeeding this silly action compelled me to admit the necessity of smothering my pride and choking my wrath, and bestirring myself to remove its effects. An unexpected aid presently appeared in the shape of Throttler, who I now recognized as the son of the old skulker, had spent its whelphood at the Grange, and was given by my father to Mr. Hindley, and I fancy it knew me. It pushed its nose against mine by way of salute, and then hastened to devour the porridge, while I groped from step to step, collecting the shattered enterware, and drawing the spatters of milk from the banister with my pocket handkerchief. Our labors were scarcely over when I heard Earnshaw's tread in the passage. My assistant tucked in his tail and pressed on to the wall, and I stole into the nearest doorway. The dog's endeavor to avoid him was unsuccessful, and as I guessed by a scutter downstairs and a prolonged pietous yelping, I had better luck. He passed on, entered his chamber, and shut the door. Directly after Joseph came up from Hareton to put him to bed, I had found shelter in Hareton's room, and the old man, on seeing me, said, "They ran—" I'm not reading that. Gladly I take advantage of this intimidation, and the minute I flung myself into the chair by the fire, I nodded and slept. My slumber was deep and sweet, though over far too soon. Mr. Heathcliff awoke me. He had just come in. He demanded, in his loving manner, what was I doing there? I told him the cause of my staying up so late, and he had the key of our room in his pocket. The adjective "our" gave mortal offense. He swore it not, nor ever should be, mine. And he'd, but I'll not repeat his language, nor describe his habitual conduct. He is a genius and unresisting and seeking to gain my abhorrence. I sometimes wonder at him with intensity that dreadens my fear, yet, I assure you, a tiger or a venomous serpent could not rouse terror in me equal to that which he awakens. He told me of Catherine's illness and accused my brother of causing it, promising that I should be Edgar's proxy in suffering till he could get a hold of him. Oh, he's going to beat her? Jesus. I do hate him. I am wretched, and I have been a fool. Beware of uttering one breath of this to anyone at the Grange, and I shall expect you every day. Don't disappoint me, Isabella. Well, that's the end of that chapter. Why don't we, wrap it up, go down to the smoking room where we can have a cigarette, and we can review what the hell we just read. There you are. Come, seat yourself here in my smoking room and have yourself a cigarette. where my wife put up parakeets because she thought it'd be kind of cute for an ambiance. Yeah, and they're all dying of lung cancer. We've gone through 3 generations of birds so far, but she thinks it's a great idea. What do we learn in this chapter? Heathcliff. He's a horrible pile of shit, but you kind of side with him, even when he's marrying a woman out of spite that he doesn't seem to care about. He does threaten physical abuse towards her, which is super creepy in general, where she's miserable and asking people to help and come visit her. So I guess I don't really take his side there, but Brontë has done a really good job making you go through his journey where you don't see him being a complete monster when he's just being a horrible monster. So you start to see how he's surrounded with what he considers intellectual inferiors, and it kind of makes his grudge and plans for revenge against Hindley more sympathetic. But then the author shows you his cruelty in how he treats his new wife just to mess with you and not make him such a clear-cut kind of hero, which is kind of amazing. So then there's Nelly. Even when Catherine is basically dying, she kind of craps on her. It's only when Catherine is talking nonsense and hallucinating about the mirror that she seems to get serious. I get it. When someone locks themselves in their room from a tantrum, you'll just be annoyed. But she doesn't seem to notice how emaciated Catherine is until she's talking monkey talk at the mirror, and then she's trying to get the husband to get involved. Nelly, I think, is jealous. She's jealous of Catherine's beauty, social standing, and all the privileges she has in the house with her baby-like petulant personality. She doesn't seem to like how Catherine treats Edgar, showing that maybe she has a little bit of a thing for him. She's been mildly annoyed at him, but never really says anything bad, but will complain at length about everyone else around him, including Heathcliff. Oh, the juicy stuff is wet in these chapters. So, with that, I guess I'm probably going to see you next week, because you just got to hear how this all works out, right? You're going to come barging into my house again. So, thanks for listening, and I'll see you later. Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people. Not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com, which just points you to my link tree. Everything's on the link tree. Just go to the link tree if you want to see where I am. And of course, link tree has the dumbest URL in the world. linktr.ee/nuzzlehouse. It's the dumbest thing. If you go to nuzzlehouse.com, it's just going to reroute you over there after giving you some weird error about it not being secure. I hate it. I hate the internet. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just in the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdling or a dork. Now, back to business. Can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.